Welcome to 7th grade math. Get ready for the lesson. The birth weights of several babies in the hospital nurseries are shown. Write an expression to find out how much more Nicholas weighs than Mia. So keyword there is how much more. So we have Nicholas is 7 15/16 and Mia is 5 7/8. So it's how much more. So that's a difference. So subtraction. Rename the fraction using the least common denominator. So we have to change 7/8 to have a denominator of 16. And in order to do that, we need to multiply 2 times 8. So we'll multiply 7 times 2 as well. And we'll rename the subtraction problem 7 15/16 minus 5 14/16. And then find a difference of the fractional parts of the mixed numbers. So 1/16. And find a difference between the whole numbers. 2. 7 minus 5 is 2. Make a conjecture. Explain how to find 7 15/16 minus 5 7/8. Then use your conjecture to find a difference. Write the fractions with a common denominator and subtract the fractions, then the whole numbers. So 7 15/16 minus 5 14/16 equals 2 1/16. To add or subtract mixed numbers, if necessary, rename the fractions using the LCD. Add or subtract the fractions. Add or subtract the whole numbers. Simplify if necessary. Examples: add and subtract mixed numbers. Find 7 4/9 plus 10 2/9, and then write in simplest form. So we'll estimate that to be 7 plus 10 equals 17. 7 4/9 plus 10 2/9. We're going to add the fractions first, which we can do because we have two like fractions. So 4 plus 2 is 6, and we'll just use the denominator of 9. Now we're going to add the whole numbers. 7 plus 10 is 17. And then we have to simplify 6/9 because there's a common factor of 3. So we get 17 2/3. Compare to estimate for reasonableness. The estimate was 17. We have 17 2/3. And that is okay. If the fractional parts of mixed numbers are unlike, use the least common denominator to rename them before adding or subtracting. So in example 2, 8 5/6 minus 2 1/3. And then we're going to write it in simplest form. We have unlike denominators, so we have unlike fractions. So we need to find the least common denominator. So 6 is the least common denominator, so we don't have to do anything to 8 5/6, but we do have to find an equivalent fraction for 1/3, where 6 is a denominator. So if we multiply 2 times 3, we get 6 in a denominator. Therefore, we have to multiply 2 times 1 in the numerator. And we have a new fraction. So 8 5/6 minus 2 2/6. We'll subtract the fractions first. So we'll subtract the numerators 5 and 2 and get 3/6. And then we'll subtract the whole numbers. We'll get 6 3/6. We do have to simplify 3/6. And we have a common factor of 3. So we'll divide the numerator and denominator by 3, and we'll get 6 1/2. Check your progress. Find 6 1/8 plus 2 5/8. Write in simplest form. So we'll do an estimate of 6 plus 3 equals 9. 6 1/8 plus 2 5/8. We do have like fractions here, so we can go ahead and do the math. If we add 1 plus 5 from the numerators, we'll get 6 over 8. Then we'll add the whole numbers. 6 plus 2 equals 8. We can simplify 6/8 because it's a common factor of 2. So if we divide the numerator and denominator by 2, we get 8 3/4. And then compared to estimate for reasonableness, And 8 3/4 is approximately 9, so that checks out. Find 5 1/5 plus 2 3/10. Write in simplest form. 10 is the least common denominator of 5 and 10. So hopefully you recognize that 10 is a multiple of 5, so we can go ahead and use that. So 5 2/10. And then, so we got that. 2/10 is a equivalent fraction to 1/5. By multiplying the numerator and denominator by 2. Then we'll use the 2 3/10. We'll add the fractions first, so we'll add 2 and 3 and get 5 over 10. And then we'll add the whole numbers of 5 plus 2 and get 7 and 5/10. And we can simplify that to 7 and 1/2 because their 5 is a common factor of 5 and 10. Find 1 and 5/9 plus 4 and 1/6. The least common denominator is 18. 2 times 9 is 18. 3 times 6 is 18. So if we multiply 9 times 2, we'll multiply the numerator 5 times 2 and get 1 and 10/18. And then for 1/6, we're going to multiply 6 times 3, so we'll multiply 1 times 3, and we'll get 4 and 3/18. So we'll add the fractions first. So add the numerators 10 and 3 to get 13 over 18. And then we'll add the whole numbers of 1 and 4, and we'll get 5. Find 5 4/5 minus 1 3/10, write in simplest form. We need to find the least common denominator. Hopefully you see that 10 is a multiple of 5. So we can use the least common denominator of 10. And in order to get an equivalent fraction to 4/5 with 10 in the denominator, we're going to multiply 5 times 2 to get 10. So we'll multiply 4 times 2 to get 8. And then we don't have to do anything to 3/10 because it already has 10 in the denominator. So we have 5 and 8/10 minus 1 and 3/10. Now that we have like denominators, all we have to do is subtract the, or find the difference of the numerators. So we have 8 minus 3 is 5 over 10. And then we will subtract the whole numbers. 5 minus 1 is 4. And we have a common factor of 5 in our fraction of 5/10. So we will simplify that to 4 and 1/2. Find 13 and 7/8 minus 9 and 3/4. Write in simplest form. So we do not have common denominators, so we need to find that. 8 is a multiple of 4, so we can go ahead and use 8 as our least common denominator. And we will leave 13 and 7/8 alone, but we do need to change the fraction 3/4 to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 8. So we will multiply 4 times 2 to get 8, and then we need to multiply the numerator of 3 times 2 to get 6. It gives us a new problem of 13 and 7/8 minus 9 and 6/8. Now we can just subtract the numerators, and we get 7 minus 6 is 1 over 8. And then we'll subtract the whole numbers. 13 minus 9 is 4. And then find 8 2/3 minus 2 1/2. So we need to find the least common denominator. In this case, it's going to be 6. So we can change 2/3 to an equivalent fraction with 6 in the denominator by multiplying the numerator and denominator by 2 and getting 8 4/6. And then for 2 1/2, we're going to multiply the denominator and the numerator by 3 to get 2 3/6. Now we can subtract the numerators. 4 minus 3 is 1 over 6. And then we can subtract the whole numbers. 8 minus 2 is 6. So we have an answer of 6 and 1/6. Find 7 3/4 minus 4 1/3. Then write in simplest form. Our least common denominator is 12. So in order to find an equivalent fraction to 3/4 that has a denominator of 12, we need to multiply the numerator and denominator by 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. So we have a new mixed number of 7 and 9/12. And then to find an equivalent fraction of 1/3 with the denominator of 12, we need to multiply the numerator and denominator times 4. So we get 4/12. So now our problem reads 7 and 9/12 minus 4 and 4/12. So we can subtract the fractions first, and now that they're like denominators, we just need to subtract the numerators. 9 minus 4 equals 5 over 12. and then we're going to subtract the whole numbers. 7 minus 4 is 3. 11 and 5/6 minus 3 and 1/8, write in simplest form. So the least common denominator should be 24. And if we rewrite 5/6 as an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 24, we will multiply the numerator and denominator times 4. So 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 6 is 24. And then we need to find an equivalent fraction to 1/8 with a denominator of 24. 8 will go into 24 3 times, so we're going to multiply the numerator and denominator of 1/8 times 3, so we get 3 over 24. Now we can subtract the fractions first, and all we need to do is subtract the numerators. So 20 minus 3 is 17, and our denominator remains 24. And then we'll subtract the whole numbers, and 11 minus 3 is 8. So we have 8 and 17 over 24. Find 9 and 4/7 minus 5 1/2, right in simplest form. So we need to find the least common denominator of 7 and 2, which is 14. So in order to write 4/7 as an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 14, we need to multiply 7 times 2 to get 14 in the denominator. So then we multiply 2 times 4 to get 8 in the numerator, and we'll just carry the 9 down. 5 1/2, so we need to find an equivalent fraction to 1/2 with 14 in the denominator. So to do that, we'd multiply 2 times 7 to get 14, which then we have to multiply the numerator 1 times 7 to get 7. And our problem now states 9 and 8/14 minus 5 and 7/14. So we will subtract the fractions first, and all we have to do is subtract the numerators. 8 minus 7 is 1 over 14. And now we'll subtract the whole numbers. 9 minus 5 is 4. So our answer is 4 and 1/14. Scaffolding questions. What is $2.50 plus $2.50? 2.5 plus 2.5. We'll add the fractions first. So 1/2 plus 1/2. We have like denominators, so we'll just add the numerators. 1 plus 1 is 2 over 2. And now we'll add the whole numbers. 2 plus 2 is 4. So we get 4 and 2 halves. And if we simplify that, 2 over 2 is an improper fraction. So we will turn that into $5. We will turn the 2 over 2 into 1 and add it to the 4 to get 5. What is $1.25 plus $1.50? Least common denominator is 4. 4 is a multiple of 2, so we know we can use 4 as a least common denominator. So we have 1 1/4, and we have 1 2/4. So we'll add the fractions first. And 1 plus 2 is 3 over 4. And now we'll add the whole numbers, and we get 2 3/4. Or we can say $2.75. We know that 3/4 is 3/4, and 3/4 is 75 cents. Sometimes you may be asked to subtract a mixed number from a whole number. In these instances, you need to convert the whole number to a mixed number. So what is $10 minus $5.50? So we have 10 and we have minus 5.5. The problem is we don't have anything to take the 1/2 from. So what we need to do is we need to change the 10 and just restate it as a different way of 10. So we can say it's 9 and 2 over 2. We know that 2 over 2 is 1, and we know that when you have a whole number and a fraction, it's the same thing as saying 9 plus 2 over 2, and 9 plus 2 over 2 is the same as 9 plus 1, which is the same as 10. So now that we have a mixed number, we can subtract the fractions, and all we have to do is subtract the numerators. So 2 minus 1 is 1 over 2, and now we'll subtract the whole numbers. 9 minus 5 is 4. So 4.5. Or we can write $4.50. What is $4 minus 1 1/4? So here's our math problem, and we need to change that, or we need to restate that 4 another way. And what we're going to do is we're going to say it's 3 4/4. And the reason this is 4/4 and not halves like in the previous example is because the denominator in 1 1/4 is 4. So we want to make this so that we can immediately do our subtraction. And to do subtraction, we need like denominators. So 3 4/4 is the same as 3 plus 4 fourths, which is the same as 3 plus 1, which is the same as 4. So we haven't changed the value. We've just restated how we're going to say 4. So now that we have two mixed numbers with like denominators, we can say subtract the fractions. So we'll subtract the numerators. 4 minus 1 is 3. We'll keep 4 in the denominator, and then we'll subtract the whole number, and we get 2 3/4. Or we can write that as 2.75 or $2.75. Sometimes when you subtract mixed numbers, the fractions in the first mixed number is less than the fraction in the second mixed number. In this case, rename the fraction as an improper fraction in order to subtract. So an improper fraction has a numerator that is greater than or equal to the denominator. Examples of improper fractions are 5/4 and 2 6/5. And rename mixed numbers to subtract. So we have 2.5 minus 1 2/3. Since 1/3 is less than 2/3, rename 2 1/3 before subtracting. So there's 2 1/3. And if we restate it, there's 1 and then there's 3/3, which is still 1, right? And then we have the 1/3. So now we've stated, we've changed 2 1/3 to 1 4/3. We have the same value, you can see. The only thing we've done is restated the 1 in the second row from 1 is in the whole number 1 to 1 is in 3/3. So we get 1 4/3. So now we have 2 1/3. And we renamed as 4/3. Rename 1/3 as 4/3. So we have 1 4/3 minus 1 2/3, which is a number we already had. So there's our new problem. I hope that you recognize that 2 1/3 and 1 4/3 have the exact same value. Now we can subtract the fractions. So 4 minus 2 is 2/3, and then 1 minus 1 is 0. Check your progress. Find 11 2/5 minus 2 3/5. So if we set this up like this, we see the problem right now is that we can't take 3/5 away from 2/5. So we are going to borrow 1 from the 11, and we'll rename 2/5 as 7/5, and we'll change the 11 to 10. So 11 2/5 is identical value to 10 7/5. We've just added 5/5 to the 2/5, which is basically adding 1 to the 2/5. And now we'll just bring the 2 3/5 over, and we'll subtract 2 3/5 from 10 7/5. So 7 minus 3 is 4 over 5. 10 minus 2 is 8. So now we have 5 3/8 minus 4 11/12. We need to find the least common denominator because we do not have like fractions, so we can't subtract. So we will change 3/8 to 9/24 because 3 times 8 is 24, so 3 times 3 is 9. And then we have 4 22/24 because 2 times 12 is 24, so 2 times 11 is 22. We cannot subtract 22/24 from 9/24, so we need to turn 9/24 into an improper fraction by borrowing 1 from 5. And we're going to borrow 1 from 5 in the form of 24 over 24. So we will have 9 plus 24 plus 24 over 24 equals 33 over 24. And we're going to take 1 away from the whole number. So now instead of 5 and 9/24, we have 4 and 33/24. We'll just bring the 4 and 22/24 over. Now we can subtract the like fractions. 33 minus 22 is 11. 4 minus 4 is 0. So we have 7 minus 1 1/2. And we have 7 minus 1 1/2. This one's a little easier than the last two because we're just going to borrow 1 from the 7. And the 1 is going to be in the form of 2 over 2. And we now have 6 2/2, which is the same as 7, minus 1 1/2. So now that we have like fractions, we can subtract 1 from 2 and get 1/2, and 1 from 6 and get 5. Real world example. An urban planner is designing a skateboard park. What will be the length of the park and the parking lot combined. So we see that the park is 120 and 1/2, and the parking lot is 40 and 1/3 feet. So if we add those together, we have 120 and 1/2 plus 40 and 1/3. The least common denominator is going to be 6. So we have 120 and 3/6 plus 40 and 2/6. We're going to add whole numbers and fractions. So the whole numbers are 160 when you add 120 plus 40. And when you add the like fractions, add 3 plus 2 in the numerator, you get 5/6. And then we'll restate it as a mixed number. So we have 160 and 5/6. The total length is 160 and 5/6 feet. Is that your understanding? Jermaine walked 1 5/8 miles on Saturday and 2.5 miles on Sunday. How many more miles did he walk on Sunday? So we have 2.5 on Sunday minus 1 5/8 on Saturday. We have unlike fractions, so we need to find the least common denominator, which is 8. And hopefully you recognize that 8 is a multiple of 2, so we can use 8 as the least common denominator. So if we convert 1/2 to an equivalent fraction with 8 in the denominator, we get 4/8. So we now have 2 4/8 minus 1 5/8. And if we borrow from the whole number, because 5/8 is larger than 4/8, we'll get 1 12/8, which is 8/8 plus 4/8. So 1 12/8 minus 1 5/8. And if we subtract the whole numbers, 1 minus 1, we get 0. So we're not going to have a mixed number here. And then if we subtract the fractions, 12 minus 5 is 7. So we get 7/8 miles. Additional examples. Find 3 1/12 plus 4 7/12. Write in simplest form. So we have like fractions, so like denominators. So we can go ahead and add the numerators. So we get 8/12 and 17. So 17 and 8/12. And we can simplify 8/12 by dividing 8 and 12 by 4, and we get 17 and 2/3. Find 9 and 7/10 minus 4 and 3/5, right in simplest form. So we do not have like fractions. 10 is a multiple of 5, so we can use 10 as the least common denominator. If we rewrite 4 and 3/5 as an equivalent fraction with 10 in the denominator, we multiply 5 times 2 to get 10 and 3 times 2 to get 6. We can now subtract 4 and 6/10 from 9 and 7/10. 7 minus 6 is 1, 10 in the denominator. 9 minus 4 is 5, so we get 5 and 1/10. We have 8 and 1/5 minus 3 and 3/5, and we need to borrow 1 from the whole number 8, and the 1 would be 5/5, so we have 5/5 plus 1/5 equals 6/5, and then we'll just use the 3 and 3/5. So 6 minus 3 is 3, and we'll keep the denominator 5. 7 minus 3 is 4. 11 minus 2 1/3. So we have a whole number 11 that we need to turn into a mixed number that equals 11. And we want a fraction with a denominator of 3 so that we can subtract 1/3 from it. So 10 and 3/3 is exactly the same value as 11. It's just restated so that we can subtract 2 and 1/3 from it. So now that we have like fractions, we can subtract 1 from 3, we get 2/3, and then we subtract 2 from 10 and get 8. And our mixed number is 8 2/3. A quiche recipe calls for 2 3/4 cups of grated cheese. And a recipe for quesadillas requires 1 1/3 cups of grated cheese. What is the total amount of grated cheese needed for both recipes? So we need to add those two mixed numbers together. And in order to do that, we need to get the fractions to be like fractions. So we need to find the least common denominator of 4 and 3, which is 12. And then we're going to restate 3/4 as an equivalent fraction with 12 in the denominator. So 3 times 4 is 12. So we'll multiply 3 times 3 in the numerator to get 9. And then for 1 1/3, we need to turn 1/3 into an equivalent fraction with 12 in the denominator. So 4 times 3 is 12. So then we'll multiply 4 times 1 and get 4. Now we can add together. 3 and 16, 12. So we're going to add together, and we're going to get 9 plus 4 is 13 over 12. And then 2 plus 1 is 3. So we have 3 and 13 twelfths. But 13 twelfths is an improper fraction. So we are going to move 12 twelfths of that to the whole number in the mixed number. So if we take 12 twelfths away and add 1 to the 3, we get 4 and 1/12 cup of grated cheese. Here's your homework. Please head to Google Classroom to submit that for your homework tonight. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in class.